Clara first felt it on an ordinary evening, the kind that usually passed without memory. Rain tapped softly against the windows, and the kitchen smelled of warm food she had cooked after a long day. Daniel sat across from her at the table, his sleeves rolled up, his posture relaxed, yet something about him felt distant. His eyes were not where they used to be. They kept drifting past her shoulder, toward the glass window facing the street. Clara followed his gaze and saw a woman outside, laughing into her phone, brushing rain from her hair before getting into her car. The moment lasted seconds, but Daniel's expression changed just long enough for Clara to notice. It was not desire alone, it was recognition. Clara said nothing. She cut her food carefully and chewed slowly, listening to the soft clink of utensils. Daniel talked about work, about deadlines and meetings, but his voice sounded practiced, like lines repeated. Too often. Clara nodded at the right moments, her mind already pulling away. Something had shifted, and once noticed, it could not be unseen. That night, Daniel fell asleep quickly. Clara stayed awake, staring at the ceiling, counting breaths that were not hers, memories replayed in sharp flashes. Missed calls explained away. Late nights justified with tired smiles. Small moments she had once forgiven because trust made forgiveness easy. Now those moments lined up, forming a picture she did not want but could no longer deny. In the days that followed, Clara watched quietly. She watched Daniel choose his clothes with more care than usual. She noticed the way he checked his phone when he thought she was not looking. She heard the change in his laugh when he stepped outside to take calls. None of it was loud or obvious. That was what hurt most. The betrayal was careful. Clara did not confront him. She needed truth, not excuses. One afternoon, while Daniel showered, his phone buzzed on the bed. Clara picked it up, her hands steady, her heart strangely calm. She did not rush. She read. Slowly, the messages were polite, thoughtful, filled with understanding words and shared frustrations. No promises, no clear lines crossed. Yet everything that mattered already had. Emotional closeness wrapped in harmless language. Clara felt a quiet ache spread through her chest. Daniel was not cruel, was not reckless, was simply choosing someone else to share parts of himself he once gave freely to her. In his mind, this made it acceptable. When Daniel came out of the bathroom, Clara had already placed the phone back where it belonged. She looked at him and saw a man who believed he was still unseen. That belief gave her clarity. The betrayal settled into her like cold water. She moved through her days with new awareness. Every word Daniel spoke felt measured. Every smile seemed delayed. Clara realized she had been holding their marriage together alone for months. Maybe longer? She thought about confronting him, imagined his face tightening, his voice softening as he explained how lonely he felt. How he never meant to hurt her. She knew he would say he still loved her, that he was just confused. Clara understood this version of him too well. Understanding did not erase the damage. It deepened it. One evening, Clara stood at the window alone. The woman across the street walked past again, unaware of the role she played in a story she did not know existed. Clara did not hate her. That surprised her. Her anger was reserved for someone closer. Clara began to think about fairness, about balance, about the quiet ways people pay for the choices they make. She wondered why betrayal so often ended with apologies instead of consequences. Why the person who stayed faithful was expected to heal everyone else. The thought of revenge came slowly, not as a loud desire, but as a question. What would it take for Daniel to feel this moment? To understand the fear of being replaced without being told? She pushed the thought away at first. Revenge felt like a word for smaller people, weaker people. Clara had always believed she was better than that. Yet the question returned each night. Sharper each time, Daniel continued as if nothing had changed. He kissed her forehead before leaving. He asked about her day. He slept beside her, unaware of the space growing between them. Clara realized how easy it was for him to live in two worlds at once. That ease hardened something inside. Clara stopped filling the silence. She stopped asking about his plans. She stopped reaching first. The house grew quieter, and Daniel noticed. He asked if she was tired. She said yes. He accepted that answer too icily. Late one night, Clara sat alone in the living room, lights off, listening to the hum of the refrigerator. She thought about who she had been before the betrayal. A woman who believed honesty would always be enough. A woman who trusted love to protect itself. That woman felt distant now. Clara did not want to destroy her marriage out of anger. She wanted truth to have weight. She wanted choices to matter. Revenge no longer felt like cruelty. It felt like control. As she stood up and turned off the last light, Clara made a quiet promise to herself. She would not act in haste. She would not shout or accuse. She would be patient, observant, deliberate. Daniel believed he was the only one with secrets. He was wrong. Clara did not rush her next steps. She moved through each day with care, learning how silence could speak louder than questions. Daniel noticed the change almost at once. She no longer asked where he was going or when he would return. She no longer waited awake for him. This absence of concern unsettled him more than anger ever could. Inside, Clara carried a storm she never showed. Her thoughts raced, sharp and restless. Revenge no longer felt like a passing idea. It became a steady presence, sitting beside her in every quiet moment. She did not want chaos. She wanted balance. She wanted Daniel to understand loss before it fully arrived. She began by reclaiming herself. Clara changed her routine. She woke earlier, went for long walks, let the air clear her mind. She returned home later than usual, offering simple explanations without detail. Daniel listened closely, trying to read meaning in her calm tone. She gave him nothing to hold. At work, Clara focused harder than ever. Her confidence returned in small ways. She spoke clearly in meetings. She laughed more freely with colleagues. She felt seen again, and that feeling reminded her of what Daniel had taken for granted. Daniel grew uneasy. He watched her from doorways, from across rooms, searching for signs of distance he could not name. He asked if she was happy. Clara answered honestly but briefly. "I'm figuring things out," she said. The words stayed with him long after she left the room. At night, when Daniel reached for his phone, Clara noticed how often he paused. His secret world had once felt safe. Now it felt fragile. The woman from work still messaged him, but his replies slowed. His attention drifted back to the home he felt slipping away. Clara saw this shift and felt a surge of power followed by guilt. She reminded herself why she had started. This was not about cruelty. This was about understanding. Her plan grew clearer. She would not expose him. She would mirror him. Distance for distance. Silence for silence. Let him stand where she had stood, unsure and unwanted. She dressed differently, not for attention, but for herself. Daniel noticed immediately. Compliments came, careful and uncertain. Clara accepted them with polite smiles. The ease they once shared did not return. 1. Evening, Clara came home later than usual. Daniel sat on the couch, lights off, waiting. He asked where she had been. She answered calmly, "Out." The word felt heavy in the room. Daniel nodded, pretending not to care, but his voice shook when he asked if everything was okay. Clara looked at him and felt the full weight of her choice. She could end it then. She could tell him everything. Instead, she said, "I'm fine." That night, Daniel barely slept. Clara lay beside him, aware of every restless breath. She wondered if this was how she had sounded months ago, silently breaking while he slept peacefully. The next weeks passed in quiet tension. Daniel canceled late meetings. He stayed home more often. He tried to repair something he did not fully understand. Clara watched, torn between relief and resolve. His effort came too late. shaped by fear instead of honesty. Daniel's other connections faded. Clara knew without checking. His attention was back where it belonged. But trust does not return simply because attention does. One afternoon, Daniel surprised her with flowers. Clara accepted them, thanked him, and placed them on the counter without comment. The gesture felt like an apology without words, and that hurt more than anger would have. Clara's mind wrestled constantly. She asked herself if this was enough, if seeing his discomfort balanced her pain. Some nights, satisfaction flickered. Other nights, emptiness filled the space it left behind. She began to realize that revenge was not a single action. It was a slow transformation. Each step forward changed her, not just Daniel. She was becoming more distant, more guarded, and she wondered if that was a victory or a loss. Daniel finally asked the question he had been avoiding. He asked if there was someone else. His voice was quiet, careful, as if afraid of the answer. Clara met his eyes and held the silence longer than necessary. She saw fear there, real fear, the kind she had carried alone for months. In that moment, she felt both powerful and tired. "I haven't crossed any lines," she said slowly. The truth, shaped carefully. Daniel nodded, unsure if that comforted him or not. He confessed that he felt her slipping away, that he did not know how to fix it. Clara listened without interrupting. For the first time, Daniel spoke without excuses. He spoke about loneliness, about feeling unimportant, about seeking connection where he should not have. Clara felt the anger rise again, sharp and familiar. She wanted to remind him that loneliness did not excuse betrayal. Instead, she said nothing. Silence forced him to sit with his words. That night, Clara stood alone in the bathroom, staring at her reflection. She barely recognized the woman looking back, stronger, colder, more awake. She wondered if revenge had given her control or simply replaced one pain with another. Her plan was reaching its end. The final choice loomed ahead, heavy and unavoidable. She could keep pushing, deep in the distance, leave Daniel broken and confused. Or she could speak, end the quiet war, and face whatever came next. As Clara turned off the light and returned to bed, she knew one truth clearly. Revenge had shown her her worth. It had also shown her the cost of holding on to anger too long. The moment of decision was close now, and whatever choice she made would define not just her marriage but the woman she would become after it ended. The moment came quietly, without warning, on a night that felt too calm for what it carried. Clara set the table with care, the same way she always had, but this time her hands felt steady for a different reason. Daniel sat across from her, watching her closely, as if every small movement mattered. He barely touched his food. His silence was heavy, filled with questions he could no longer avoid. Finally, Daniel spoke. His voice was low and uncertain. He asked if she was pulling away from him on purpose. The question landed between them, honest and afraid. Clara looked at him for a long moment, taking in the lines of worry on his face. The man who once felt so familiar and now felt distant? She knew this was the point of no return. Clara took a breath and began to speak. She did not raise her voice, did not accuse or insult. She told him she knew about the messages. She told him she had known for a long time. With each word, Daniel's face changed. Shock gave way to guilt, then to something deeper. Understanding, Daniel tried to explain himself. But Clara lifted her hand gently, stopping him. She told him she had already heard those explanations in her head 100 times. Loneliness, confusion, feeling unseen. She told him she understood those feelings but refused to accept the choices he made because of them. Daniel broke down. Then, not in anger, but in regret. He admitted he never believed she would find out. He said he thought emotional distance was less harmful than physical betrayal. Clara listened, realizing how easily people convince themselves they are still good while doing harm. She told him about the past weeks, about the silence, the distance. the way she had stepped back on purpose. Daniel's eyes widened as he understood. For the first time, he realized that the fear he had been carrying was only a shadow of what she had felt. Clara did not smile. There was no victory in her expression, only clarity. She told Daniel that revenge had not brought her peace. It had brought her answers. It showed her how fragile their bond had become and how strong she had grown without him. She told him that making him feel the same uncertainty did not erase her pain, but it did give her back her voice. Daniel asked if it was too late. The question trembled with hope and fear. Clara stood and walked to the window, looking out at the quiet street. The world outside had not changed, yet everything inside her had. She turned back to him and spoke slowly. She said forgiveness was possible, but trust was not something that returned just because someone asked for it. She said she needed time, space, and honesty without conditions. Daniel agreed quickly, desperate to hold on to what remained. But Clara already knew the truth. Over the next days, the house felt strange. Daniel tried harder than ever. He stayed home, cooked meals, spoke. Openly, Clara watched him with a calm that surprised even her. She felt no anger now, only a deep sense of distance. The bond had been damaged too quietly for repair to feel real. One morning, Clara packed a small bag. Daniel watched from the doorway, silent, understanding what words could not change. She told him she was not leaving out of revenge or hate. She was leaving because staying would mean living in a constant negotiation with pain. Daniel did not argue. He apologized without excuses. For the first time, his words felt complete. Clara accepted them without promise. When she stepped outside, the air felt lighter. Not joyful, but free. She realized revenge had been a path, not a destination. It led her to see her worth, her limits, and her strength. Days turned into weeks. Clara rebuilt her life slowly. Focused on work, friendships, and quiet mornings that belonged only to her. The desire for revenge faded, replaced by a deeper understanding. Payback had never been about hurting Daniel. It had been about proving to herself that she mattered. Daniel reached out occasionally, respectful and patient. Clara responded when she was ready, so no longer felt controlled by anger or obligation. Whatever future awaited them would be built on truth, or not built at all. One evening, Clara sat, alone, reflecting on everything that had happened. She realized revenge had given her a voice, but walking away had given her peace. The satisfaction she once sought was replaced by something stronger. Clarity. She understood now that revenge can wake a person up, but it cannot heal them. Healing comes from choosing yourself when the cost of staying becomes too high. As to sunset, Clara felt no bitterness, only resolve. The betrayal no longer defined her. The revenge no longer ruled her. Her story did not end with destruction, but with release. And in that release, Clara finally found what she had been seeking all along.